Hey everybody, Omar here, the Knife Shark Guy, and I am back with another video for you today. And today we're going to be doing a comparison video. The Spyderco Swish Bowie being compared to the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21. Now, there needs to be a distinction between both knives because there are some similarities, and I've given this some thought, and the only way you can really compare the Chris Reeve knife to the Spyderco Swish Bowie is in one area, and that area would be attention to detail. Other than that, you really can't compare a Chris Reeve Sebenza 21 to a Spyderco Swish Bowie. A lot of people have opted to get the Spyderco Swish Bowie because, well, they can't actually afford a Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, or they wanted to put off getting a Sebenza 21 because these knives are incredibly pricey, as everybody knows. In fact, I pulled the trigger just this past Saturday, and I haven't looked back since. So with that in mind, there really is only one area where we can compare this knife to this knife, and that's in the area of the attention to detail. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first off, on the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, this knife is like detailed way up the ante. He has done everything possible to separate himself from the competitors by just simply paying attention to the detail. However, most knife companies pay attention to detail. Chris Reeve almost triples that, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. So first of all, if we take a look at the Sebenza 21, Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, we can see just how beautiful the knife looks overall. It's a very linear look, straight line all the way through. That's one attention to detail, just the overall look of it. It's got a beautiful clip point blade, and you really can't help but think that Chris Reeve really thought about using strictly the clip point blade for this particular knife, because it gives it a certain look. It gives it a straight line look. There's no interruption in your eyes. Nothing juts out. Everything is just perfectly straight, linear, and meant to focus your eyes when you see this knife. Another attention to detail on the Chris Reeve knife is just how smooth and well built it is. So if you look at this knife, there are no rough edges anywhere on this knife. No place, not even the bolsters. Those are well rounded and smooth all over. Rounded edges all over this knife. I mean, he has gone way insane with this, with the idea of having a smooth look on his knife. Another distinction is most knives usually have a back spacer, or maybe at least 3, maybe even 4 standoffs. Chris Reeve got rid of all that and decided to keep it a detailed, clean look. And there's only really, honestly, there's really only one standoff, and this is it, right here, right by where the lanyard hole is. And actually, I'm going to get to that in a second, but there's really only one standoff. There's like one right here, and then I guess one right up there, but everything else is completely open construction, which is what makes the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21 such a beautiful piece of, I guess, artwork, because that's really what it is. It's artwork. So it's a completely open construction all the way through. Okay, third, the lock bar itself is incredibly thick. I mean, it's a thick lock bar, but you don't see it as being thick, which is kind of an amazing thing in itself. The lock bar here itself is probably, I'm going to say, maybe like a 1/16 of an inch thick, perhaps. But it really holds, the lock bar is so strong, there's no way to push the lock bar out any further. And here's the thing. It's a true integral Reeve lock. The knife, from the top, it's like a 1/2 inch from the top of the knife all the way down to about a 1/2 inch to the bottom of the knife. There's nothing really holding the knife other than just the titanium itself. But because the lock bar and the thickness of the titanium is so thick, there really is no way for you to push it out any further than what you're capable of pushing it. I can't, you know, I'm sure you could if you really wanted to forcefully do it, but there'd be no reason to do that, even in normal use. The pocket clip itself, again, another detail on the knife. It's almost, when he installed the pocket clip, it's practically flat along the side where they installed it. I mean, most pocket clips, there's like a hump or something. He decided to just go ahead and make it practically the same height as all the other bolsters. So again, there's no interruption in your eye. Straight detail along the knife itself. Nothing is sticking out on this knife. Absolutely nothing. Now, here's the thing. The lanyard is very special on a Chris Reeve knife. The lanyard, I'm assuming, or at least I think, is a Chris Reeve standard. The lanyard is so important to Chris Reeve, he actually puts a special standoff just created that's just for that. You know, most knives, they actually have the lanyard right maybe on here, on probably the bottom standoff over here, or if there were maybe another one, he'd have it here on the side. Instead, he actually creates one in the middle to give it the right look, and then it gives your eye something to pay attention to, because you're not even realizing that that's where the lanyard is actually being put. But that's basically what Chris Reeve has done. And it's really just an amazing thing of beauty. Another thing on this knife is how smooth it is. One of the things that Chris Reeve is well known for is his attention to the tight tolerances. I mean, his tolerances have been known to be like aerospace tight. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. There's no way you could literally break this knife. I really don't, really don't see it. It's just all 100% solid titanium. Another thing, obviously, I got the bog oak inlay Chris Reeve, which is absolutely beautiful. Which is another thing. There's actually two versions of the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21. There's one where they take the bog oak or the inlay, and they just put it straight on top of the sandblasted titanium, which is what this is. But in this case, on this one, there's another layer of, I guess, shiny titanium on top of it. I'm assuming it looks like it's infused because it's all one piece. I don't think it's two pieces. It looks like it's one piece that was polished on there, and then they laid the bog oak on top of that to give it an even cleaner look. And of course there's the bog oak there on that side as well. So everything about this knife just screams attention to detail. There's nothing on here that Chris Reeve didn't pay attention to when creating this. I'm going to call it a masterpiece because that's what it is. So there you have it, the Chris Reeve Sebenza in detail. Now, let's put this aside for a minute and take a look at the Spyderco Swish Bowie, which I'm not really going to call this a competitor to the Chris Reeve Sebenza. I'm going to call this Spyderco's version, okay, of attention to detail, because that's really the only way I can compare this knife to this knife, is how it was done, because there's actually a lot of detail put in this knife that I think really isn't seen as much. Now, Nick Shabazz has already done like 3 videos on this knife, but just so you guys can see how they did the attention to detail on this knife in their own way, in Spyderco's own way. So first off, let's take a look at it. Most knives do not have titanium that's stonewash polished like that. So there's one attention to detail right there. It's very, very smooth overall. It's not slip. I mean, it's kind of slippery, but it feels really good in your hand. It's not, you know, it's not rough on your hands. It feels really nice when you put it in your hand. So that's one. Secondly, we also have an integral Reeve lock. However, unlike the Chris Reeve Sebenza, where it's almost all the way down to the bottom of the knife, on the Spyderco Swish Bowie, they put it up about maybe an exact 1 inch up here onto the knife. And it's because, I'm assuming it's because it is not as thick titanium, okay, as the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21. It's clear you can see that the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21 is much thicker titanium on the lock bar than the Spyderco Swish Bowie. However, it works just as well on the Spyderco Swish Bowie. So to alleviate the pressure, they put the integral Reeve lock about an inch up on the knife. They leave about an inch left on the bottom of the knife, put it that way. And another thing regarding the Chris Reeve integral lock, let's take a look at this also, because that's also very interesting. On most knives, the relief cut, which is what this is, on the Sebenza 21, which is what I find interesting, they put it on the inside of the knife. Now, the relief cut is usually, that's where you'll usually find the relief cut, is on the inside of the knife. But on the Spyderco Swish Bowie, again, for attention to detail, they put it on the outside of the knife because they realized that the Reeve integral lock needs something else more holding the knife in when you use it, and in this case, it's your hand. Okay, so what happens is, by putting the relief cut on the outside of the knife, you're giving the knife a direct force vector so that the knife won't close up on you, which is the main difference on the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21. On the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, it's on the inside. Why? Because the titanium that they use is so much thicker, it really doesn't need it. So they continue to put the relief cut on the inside of the knife instead. So, okay, back to the Spyderco Swish Bowie. This also has its own sort of attention to detail. Again, everything is nice and smooth. Everything is round. Even the screws. The screws are sunken into the knife. They don't stick out like they do on most knives. They make sure that they have those screws all the way well in there. Secondly, the way the knife is constructed. Now, these screws here, you'd think they just screw in straight into the titanium, but that's actually not the case with the Spyderco Swish Bowie. I've taken this knife apart. I don't want to talk about it. It was a nightmare, but I found out when I took it apart that there are tubes, okay? There's a tube here, and a tube here. And that's where the screws actually screw in. Now, the thing about that is the tubes are exactly the size all the way around the knife. So if you actually put the wrong screw into the wrong tube, you're going to get like this little jiggly effect, which is what happened to me. So basically, the knife has exact screwing proportions in there. You're going to have to pay attention to how you put the screws back into this knife should you ever take it apart. So that's one attention to detail, and they did that in junction to this backspacer. Now again, the backspacer on this knife is almost totally flat. You can't even see well, I can't do it on my iPhone, but if you saw this knife up close and I put it up at this angle like this, well, that's the way I could do it. So you see the teeth there, the little ragged teeth right there. If you put it sideways, check it out, you can't even see the teeth sticking out. So that's one other thing that they did as far as attention to detail that most people don't realize. So you would probably think that on most knives, those little jaggedy teeth, I guess I'm going to call them teeth, would be sticking out on top of the knife when you put it sideways, but they don't. Even the jimping on the top of the blade, it's very smooth on there. It's not rough. It's very smooth. Again, another similarity between the Spyderco Swish Bowie and the Sebenza 21. Look how they are rounded on top of the knife. Of course, on the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, because that's his signature, he does that on all of his blades. He crowns the top. In other words, he rounds it out so it's nice and smooth on top of the blade there. And they did the same thing on the Spyderco Swish Bowie, but they only did it up to about here. But here's the thing, okay? While the Sebenza 21 is crowned from the top all the way down to the bottom, check out what Spyderco did, which I thought was really cool. I'd never seen anything like this. On the Spyderco Swish Bowie, it's rounded, right? And then it goes to this flat. How in the world they got this thing nice and round here, and then they got it flat on top to intersect together? I don't know how in the hell they did that, but that is definitely an attention to detail. It is exact. That is some serious, serious machining right there. Smoothness on the knife. Basically, there are quite a few differences in the smoothness. This one's obviously very, very smooth. It pops out. They both run on washers. There's no KBT ball bearing system on this. I don't know how you guys look at it, but if I see a knife that is that smooth without ball bearings, I'm incredibly impressed. That to me is something that I absolutely love. It's one of the more is less design. I kind of like that. The less things you put into a knife to give it the same effect is always more attractive. And they did the same thing to the Chris Reeve Sebenza. Now mine is actually brand new, so it's going to take a while for me to get that even looser because this is way much looser. I've been using this knife quite a bit. In fact, I put a new edge on it, which, by the way, I am not mechanically inclined, so I can't say I did that myself. I took it down to a shop and had someone do it correctly because I knew if I were to do it, I'd screw it up. So I had that guy did it. He did it for like $7, did a fantastic job. The steel on these are questionable. Honestly, I don't know which steel is better, whether it's S35VN or CTS HXP, because they have completely different properties as far as the steel goes. I'm not a metallurgist or a metallurgist, I guess, whatever it is that you call it, but the steel, some people say that CTS HXP is just a hair better than S35VN. Other people say that S35VN is a more solid steel overall for everyday use rather than CTS HXP. But I can tell you one thing though, to sharpen CTS HXP is a real pain. It's a real pain to sharpen that steel, as opposed to S35VN, which is a little easier to sharpen. And that's another thing that Chris Reeve has done, is he's actually patented, along with CPM Crucible, to create the S35VN, because he created the Sebenza 21 back in 1991, and he was looking for a steel that was better than S30V, which was the standard at the time. He wanted to up it, and he created, along with CPM Crucible, S35VN. So now that's the only steel that Chris Reeve deals in. He just doesn't believe that while you could have a super steel on your knife, it's not really necessary, because S35VN should be good enough for your everyday use, because that's what this knife really is for. It's for everyday use. While you may while you may have better steels out there with better edge retention, like for example, I've got a Spyderco Advocate that I'm absolutely in love with. That's got CPM M4 super steel on it. Granted, it's corrosive steel, but still, it's definitely one of the best steels out there as far as edge retention. S35VN also has good edge retention as well, but he saw S35VN as the perfect steel choice for his knives, because he wanted to create a steel that everybody could sharpen and everybody would have access to. You wouldn't have to worry about, well, how do I sharpen this? How do I do that? So that's something else that Chris Reeve has actually done. So in any case, there you have it. My comparison between the Spyderco Swish Bowie and the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, large Sebenza 21. In my opinion, they're two totally different knives, and they're both great in their own way. Can I really compare this knife to that knife, or this knife to that knife? Not really. The only way that I can compare these two to each other is the attention to detail that it took to make the knife. That's why this knife is so well talked about, because it costs a lot of money to make this knife. Which is probably the main reason why they didn't put a super steel on the Spyderco Swish Bowie, because it would jack the price of the knife even higher if they did that. Maybe they should have done that. I don't know, but they were paying attention more to how the knife was made. Maybe they saw Chris Reeve knife and said, you know what, why don't we create our own version, not of a Chris Reeve knife, but of a highly detailed knife that everybody would just love to own. So I don't necessarily think that they are comparing themselves to Chris Reeve as much as maybe they saw the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21 and said, what a very incredibly detailed knife that is. Why don't we try and put the same kind of thought process when creating the Spyderco Swish Bowie? That's basically what I think happened here. And Spyderco did it very successfully, which is another school of thought to think about, which I thought was really kind of interesting discussion. Now, Spyderco, ZT, and Benchmade, these guys pump out high-quality knives all the time, nonstop. Their stuff is just really, really tight. And they've got many, many, many models, right? Chris Reeve, this is his signature knife, the Sebenza 21, right? And then he's also got the M90, and the Nunzon. He used to have one called the T-Lock, which is now gone. Basically, Chris Reeve has maybe 4 or 5 different models, and that's it. And he's been doing the same knives over and over and over again, right? He doesn't put anything new out, which makes you kind of wonder, maybe he doesn't really need to. Because basically, if you can make a product and continue to make the product and up the ante every time that you make it, or at least pay attention to the standards every time it comes out of your factory, maybe that's really all people really want when it comes to a knife. I think people really need to look at Chris Reeve that way. He basically puts all of his concentration in his brand and in his quality and every knife that leaves the factory. I don't know if you've actually seen his YouTube video, but he basically screams that all day long. And from what I understand, back in Idaho, he pushes his people to continue to create this type of artwork with the tight tolerances and the fit and finish being really ridiculous. He won't stop doing that. And I think that has now become the face of Chris Reeve. The fact that he doesn't stop doing that is the only thing that we see. We forget about the fact that he can't pump out knife after knife after knife like Spyderco and Swish Bowie, like Spyderco and Zero Tolerance and Benchmade can. So what he does is he separates himself by simply saying to you, this is what I have, this is what I do. He's saying, I'm glad that you like these guys, you know, but when you're done with those guys, maybe you might want to try me. That's basically how I see Chris Reeve. He's with, again, I said it on my last video, he's with these guys, but again, Chris Reeve is his own island, which is, again, in closing, you really cannot compare this knife to this knife based on that school of thought. So again, this is Omar, the Knife Shark Guy, signing off with another video discussion. Again, guys, if you like and see what I do, I haven't said it enough, please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I do. Please leave some comments. I know my channel doesn't have very many graphics. I'm still in the learning stage. I've got a lot to learn as far as how to set up my YouTube channel, but I'm still making the videos regardless, so hopefully the quality of my videos will make you guys keep coming back. I hope. I am currently up to 72 subscribers right now, and I'm really happy. And while I'm here, I would like to give a quick shout out once again to my new favorite knife, guys, the Epicurean Edge here in Washington, in Kirkland. You gotta check their shop out. It's absolutely incredible. Really tiny store, lots and lots of knives, guys. These guys have got tons of stuff. If you're in Washington and you want to see what one of these knives look like, or you've never held one of these knives, be very careful, because that's what I did, and I actually wound up leaving with one. So, and that's another thing I wanted to say before, in closing. For those of you guys that do not own one of these knives yet, I can only tell you, don't be jealous, because you will own one of these. I guarantee it. It's just a matter of time. I don't care who you are, whether you're, whether you're spending tons and tons of money on knives or not, you're gonna own one of these knives. It's just a matter of time. And if you really want to get one right here. Epicurean Edge, if you're here in Washington, go visit these guys. These people are absolutely insane. And I love visiting their store, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to give a shout out to the Epicurean Edge again. You guys are going to see me there next Saturday, or this Saturday. I'll be there again. There's no place else I want to be. It's my Disneyland. Epicurean Edge, and this is Omar once again signing off with another comparison video. Spyderco Swish Bowie up against Chris Reeve, Sebenza 21. I hope I didn't insult anybody by making this video, but this is really just my opinion. You don't have to take it. You can take it or leave it. I don't care. I made the video. I wanted to give my thoughts out there, and I did. So this is Omar signing off once again, hoping that you will find happiness in your next piece of sharp art. And once again, if you like what I do, please like and subscribe and share. And I want to see some comments. Please comment on my videos. Comment on all my videos. I'm begging you to. I don't have very many comments, so I want to hear your thoughts. Because I will respond back to you if I see a comment. I'm not one of those guys that doesn't respond. I'll respond. Let me know what you think of this video. So, happy knife hunting, guys. Catch you later.